On June 5, 1986, 4-year-old Jessica Gutierrez vanished from her bedroom in Edmond, South Carolina. Her sister, who shared the bed with her, said a man in a wizard hat took her during the night. At first, police doubted her story, but the front door was open, the window screen removed, and a fingerprint was found on the glass. Cigarette butts were also discovered nearby. Jessica's mother, Debbie, suspected a recent ex-boyfriend, but no evidence linked him to the crime. Months later, police arrested a man named Thomas McDowell for unrelated break-ins. His fingerprints matched the one found at Debbie's house. Debbie recognized him because he had done work on her property and wore a cowboy hat, possibly what her daughter mistook for a wizard hat. Despite the match, police didn't charge him, claiming the fingerprint wasn't enough without a body. In prison, Thomas reportedly confessed to a cellmate, saying he abducted and killed Jessica. Still, authorities refused to act, demanding more proof. For decades, Debbie fought for justice, conducting her own investigation and publicly criticizing law enforcement. In 2021, the case was reopened. New evidence and old testimonies resurfaced. In 2024, nearly 38 years later, Thomas McDowell was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Justice at long last was served. In 1972, the quiet suburb of Marietta, Georgia, was shaken by a tragedy that would leave the community haunted for decades. Debbie Randall, a bright 9-year-old girl, vanished without a trace. Her disappearance sparked a massive search effort, but despite the tireless work of local authorities and volunteers, the case soon grew cold, leaving a gaping wound in the town and a family devastated by the loss of their young daughter. Debbie's body was found several weeks later, hidden in a remote area, and it was clear that her death was the result of a brutal abduction and murder. The investigation initially led to several leads, but none were substantial enough to bring the killer to justice. Over time, the trail grew colder, and as years turned into decades, the case became a tragic reminder of how many families never receive the closure they deserve. Then in 2023, technology finally caught up with the tragedy. Advances in DNA evidence analysis led to a breakthrough in the cold case. Genetic testing revealed a match to a man named William Rose, a man who had died in 1974, just 2 years after Debbie's murder. The discovery was both shocking and heartbreaking. Rose, a man with a history of violent behavior, had never been a suspect, and it was only through modern forensic science that his identity as Debbie's killer was finally uncovered. While the revelation of Rose's identity brought a sense of closure to the case, it also came with a bittersweet sting. Justice had come far too late for Debbie Randall and her grieving family. Rose had lived out the remainder of his life without facing the consequences of his actions. Still, for the first time in 51 years, the truth had been revealed, and with it, a sense of justice that had long been denied. The case stands as a chilling reminder of how technology, in the right circumstances, can help solve mysteries that time and forgotten evidence left unsolved. Though it was too late for Debbie and her family to see the man responsible for her death held accountable, the truth finally came to light, offering a small but important measure of justice after more than 5 decades. In 1966, 18-year-old Karen Snyder was brutally murdered in her home in Calumet, Illinois, while her 2-month-old daughter slept nearby. Her husband, Paul, discovered her body after returning from work. Karen had been stabbed 124 times, and there were signs of a struggle throughout the house. The crime scene suggested the attacker knew her and tried to stage a break-in. 2 main suspects emerged: Paul, her husband, and James Barbier, a family friend with unexplained injuries the night of the murder. Blood at the scene matched James's blood type, but with no solid forensic evidence available at the time, charges couldn't stick and the case went cold. Karen's family was devastated. Her parents died without ever knowing the truth, and her daughter Paula grew up unaware of the details until later in life. Paul eventually remarried and passed away in 1989. For decades, the case remained unsolved until 2022, when a distant relative contacted police out of curiosity. That call helped reignite interest in the cold case, marking a potential turning point in the investigation after nearly 60 years. In 2024, a cold case from 1988 was reopened after a man who had been reading about the case contacted the police with a suggestion to use modern DNA technology. The police discovered that much of the evidence, including Karen's clothing, had been well preserved. DNA from blood found on her dress matched James, a 21-year-old suspect at the time. Despite being 79 and in poor health, James was arrested for the murder, confessed, but remained out on bail due to his condition. His motives remain unclear, but jealousy and intoxication were considered potential factors. Meanwhile, the 1988 murder of 11-year-old Melissa Trimble in Lawrence, Massachusetts, was also investigated. Her body was found near a railroad track, but evidence suggested foul play rather than an accident. Witnesses reported seeing a brown van and a man who could be linked to her disappearance. Despite an extensive investigation and a potential suspect, Tommy Lynn Sells, the case went cold for many years. In 2013, a new lead came forward, with a man recalling seeing Melissa with a man named Mike. But inconsistencies in the witness's account led to further complications in solving the case. The mystery surrounding Melissa's death remains unresolved. In 1988, the case of Melissa's murder went cold, but in 2014, it was reopened with the advancement of DNA analysis. DNA samples under Melissa's nails revealed traces of foreign skin, leading investigators to a partial DNA profile. After years of analysis, genetic genealogy led them to the McClendon family, with Marvin McClendon becoming a prime suspect. Marvin, a former prison guard, lived near the crime scene and matched witness descriptions. Despite a partial DNA match and no direct evidence, Marvin was arrested in 2022. In another case, Tanya Van Kenborg and her boyfriend Jay Cook went missing in November 1987 during a trip from Victoria to Seattle. After several days of searching, Tanya's body was found, shot in the head, and her hands tied. In 1987, Tanya Van Kenborg and Jay Cook were tragically murdered after traveling to Seattle. Their bodies were found in separate locations, and DNA evidence linked a mysterious man to the crime. Despite extensive investigation, the killer remained elusive until 2018, when genetic genealogy led authorities to William Tallett, a truck driver with a violent history. Tallett's DNA matched evidence from the crime scene, and he was arrested and convicted in 2019. During the trial, defense attorneys argued the DNA evidence could be explained by consensual intercourse, but additional evidence, including fingerprints and testimonies, strengthened the case against Tallett. In 2021, his conviction was briefly overturned, but a higher court reinstated it in 2022. What do you think? Which case shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more gripping stories from the world's most mind-boggling mysteries. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the past has a way of catching up with the present, and the truth always finds a way to come to light. Until next time, stay curious,